When the German army invaded Greece in April of 1941, they expected a swift and easy victory. A small Mediterranean country, already bled dry from months of fighting Mussolini's Italy. Surely it would crumble like so many before it. But they were wrong. What followed would become one of the most brutal and courageous chapters of World War II. A nation starved, burned, and shattered, yet unbroken. A people who refused to surrender, even when facing one of the most ruthless occupations in modern history. This is the story of how Greece, the so-called underdog of Europe, fought back against the full weight of Nazi Germany and won the world's admiration. The story begins on October 28, 1940. Italian dictator Benito Mussolini demanded Greece surrender to the Axis. But Prime Minister Ioannis Metaxas had only one answer. Oxy. No. That single word would echo across history. Within hours, Italy invaded from Albania. But to the world's astonishment, the Greeks didn't break. They pushed back. Through snow, mountains, and hunger. Entire villages rallied to supply soldiers. Women carried ammunition to the front on their backs. For 6 long months, the Greeks fought like lions, pushing Mussolini's army deep into Albania. It was the first Axis land defeat of the war. Humiliated, Mussolini begged Hitler for help. And that's when Germany turned its eyes toward Greece. On April 6, 1941, the Wehrmacht launched Operation Marita, the invasion of Greece through Bulgaria. Within days, the German war machine overwhelmed the Greek defenses. Thessaloniki fell in 4 days. On April 27, Nazi troops entered Athens, raising the swastika over the Acropolis. The sight of that flag above the birthplace of democracy burned itself into Greek memory. Greece had fallen, but its people not. When the Axis powers divided Greece, the country was split between 3 occupiers, Germany, Italy, and Bulgaria. Each claimed their share, but the Germans ruled with mechanical cruelty. Curfews, censorship, torture, public executions, and starvation. The Germans plundered everything: gold, livestock, grain, oil. They even drained the Greek national treasury. What they couldn't use, they destroyed. By the winter of 1941, famine had gripped the cities. In Athens, people dropped dead in the streets from hunger. Children scavenged garbage bins for fruit peels. Families boiled weeds just to survive. An elderly survivor, Logothetis, recalled, "When things got too difficult, we left for the village. My aunt brought plants she'd picked from the cemetery. Because the soil there was fertile. Each day, hundreds died in the capital. And still, the Germans took more. The Germans ruled through fear. Anyone suspected of resistance, man, woman, or child, could vanish overnight. In Thessaloniki, Ioannina, and Corfu, Jewish families were rounded up and deported to concentration camps. 50 to 60,000 Greek Jews would never return. Villages faced collective punishment for every German casualty. Entire communities were wiped from the map. Over 800 towns were burned. The Germans called them retaliations. The Greeks called them holocausts. Completely burnt away. One woman, Alexandra Margu, remembered the night German soldiers stormed her home. They came because light showed through our curtains during blackout. They took my father's ID and told him to bring 30 eggs the next day to get it back. A trivial offense. But under occupation, even light could cost you your life. When resistance fighters killed a German soldier near her town, 8 civilians were executed in the square. The Nazis said, "One of us for 8 of you." This was their message to all of Greece: obey or burn. But that message didn't work. It only fueled the fire. Barely a month after Athens fell, 2 young men, Manolis Glezos and Lakis Santos, snuck onto the Acropolis under cover of darkness. They tore down the Nazi flag and raised the Greek one. It was a moment of defiance seen by no one, but felt by everyone. Soon, organized resistance spread like wildfire. The National Liberation Front, EAM, emerged, led by the Communist Party, followed by its armed branch, ELAS. Their mission: to liberate Greece and give its people a voice in their own future. Others joined too: royalists, republicans, and independents, forming groups like EDs. From the mountains they struck, sabotaging trains, ambushing convoys, destroying supply depots. The Germans retaliated with horror, but the resistance kept growing. In November 1942, Greek fighters and British commandos united for Operation Harling. The demolition of the Gorgopotamos Bridge. The explosion severed German supply lines to North Africa. It was the first major act of sabotage in occupied Europe. From that moment on, the Nazis knew Greece would not be subdued quietly. May 1941. The skies over Crete darkened with German paratroopers. Hitler's elite Fallschirmjäger had come to crush the last Allied foothold in Greece. But they didn't expect what came next. Unarmed civilians, shepherds, monks, old men, rushed to fight. With axes, knives, even bare hands, they attacked German troops as they landed. It was chaos and courage beyond belief. Though the Germans eventually captured the island, it came at a devastating cost. Thousands of paratroopers were killed, so many that Hitler would never again approve a major airborne invasion. The Cretan resistance never stopped. Together with British SOE agents, they sabotaged airfields, relayed intelligence, and even kidnapped a German general, Heinrich Crepe, right under the Nazis' noses. Sir Patrick Leffermor, the British officer who led that mission, said of the Cretans: villagers, shepherds, old men, boys, monks, priests, even women, all rose at once and threw themselves on the invaders. Crete had become a living symbol of defiance. Resistance wasn't limited to the mountains. In Athens, telecommunications workers launched strikes against the Germans. Students distributed illegal newspapers. When the Nazis ordered Greeks to be deported to labor camps, the people rose up again, blocking the transports. Even funerals became acts of rebellion. At the funeral of national poet Kostis Palamas, thousands filled the streets, chanting for freedom while Nazi officers watched helplessly. In villages like Sufli, civilians risked everything to support the fighters. Alexandra Margu recalled her neighbors secretly charging radio batteries to help the partisans communicate with the Allied command. She said, "The Germans came to drink upstairs in the bakery, and while they toasted victory, we charged the partisans' radios in the basement below." The war in Greece wasn't just fought by soldiers. It was fought by everyone. Now the cost was beyond measure. Over 300,000 Greeks died, from starvation, executions, and battle. 50 to 60,000 Jews were deported. 800 towns were obliterated. In Kalavrita, December 1943, the Germans carried out one of the worst massacres of the war. After partisans killed 77 Nazi soldiers, the Wehrmacht launched Operation Kalavrita. They burned 50 villages, looted everything of value, and rounded up the men of Kalavrita. 499 of them were marched to a nearby hill and shot. Women and children were locked inside the schoolhouse as the town burned. Only a few escaped. To this day, the hill outside Kalavrita stands as sacred ground, a symbol of both tragedy and defiance. Despite the suffering, Greece's defiance inspired the world. Winston Churchill said, "If it were not for the bravery of the Greeks and their courage, the outcome of World War II would have been undetermined." Franklin Roosevelt called their struggle a heroic defense that stirred the hearts of the world. And even Joseph Stalin, no friend to the West, admitted after Stalingrad, I am sorry I shall not live long enough to thank the Greek people, whose resistance decided World War II. The words of enemies and allies alike, united in respect for a nation that refused to break. By late 1944, as the Red Army pushed toward Germany, the Nazis began to retreat. Resistance forces already controlled much of Greece. On October 12, 1944, the last German soldiers left Athens. Crowds filled the streets, waving flags, embracing strangers, crying tears of joy. 2 days later, British forces arrived, greeted not as occupiers, but as friends. For the first time in years, Greece was free. But freedom came at a terrible cost. A shattered economy, entire generations lost, political divisions that would soon erupt into a civil war. Still, for those 4 years under darkness and starvation, the Greeks stood united, proving that courage can burn brighter than conquest. The Germans tried to break Greece. They destroyed her cities, her villages, her people. But they failed, because Greece was never just a place. It was an idea. The idea that freedom is worth any price. As Churchill once said, hence, we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks.